Hey everyone, Mr. MC here. This is a guide for round 2 of stage 2 of the 2022 Nations Cup taking place at Deep Forest Raceway with Group 4 cars. So let's take a look at the race details. So this is an 18 lap race. We're only using the racing medium tires. Fuel is at ×1, tire wear is at ×4. BOP is on and tuning is disabled. No mandatory pit stops, and since we're only using one tire compound, there are no mandatory tires. For this video, I'm going to be doing the lap guide with the Nissan Silvia S15 touring car, as at least for me, this car is actually pretty good when it comes to the race pace. It's okay when it comes to the qualifying pace, which is actually going to be something that you're going to want to think about if you're planning on doing this race. So let's go ahead and actually get started with the lap guide. So you want to make your way towards the right side of the track as we get started with the new lap. Stay on 5th gear unless if you're under zone slipstream, and brake just after the curb on the right starts. So this is right before the 100 meter board. Brake hard for a short while. Slowly ease off of the brakes as you're turning in, trying to touch the curbs and then get on the throttle. Then look for a sign that is on the left. You can use that as your cue to start to turn in. You can lift off a throttle or use a tiny bit of braking. Just try to maintain as much momentum as possible. Then right around here, this is where you want to start to use a bit of braking to bring yourself towards the left. And then brake just as a curb on the left ends. This turn is a little tricky as you want to try to maintain as much momentum as possible and really get on the throttle. Then just after the tunnel ends, this is where you want to start to brake. So 50% braking power right around here. Just trying to maintain your momentum. Exit on 3rd gear. Get on the throttle as soon as you can. Then just after you pass the apex, which I have highlighted right here, you want to use a little bit of braking to try to turn in a bit more. You can shift down for just a moment, but make sure you exit on 4th gear and brake just after the bridge starts. So brake hard for a short while. You can go down to 2nd gear for a bit more rotation, but exit on 3rd gear, and be careful about getting onto the green stuff because you can get on it, but sometimes it does trigger a track limit penalty, so just be careful about getting onto that. But bring yourself towards the right side of the track and you're braking just as you're about to approach the Gran Turismo banner, or just before the curb on the right starts. Full braking power for a very long time. You can go down to 1st gear for a bit more rotation, exit on 2nd gear, actually coast for just a moment to let the car turn in a bit more, but then once I get on the throttle, I fully commit. But that is going to be it for the lap guide. Just take it easy through here, nice and gentle turn in, and in a moment we'll go ahead and get ready to start the race strategies. Alright, so as that's about to start, so this is going to be an 18 lap race at Deep Forest Raceway with any Group 4 cars. Fuel is at ×1, so fuel is not an issue. Tire wear is at ×4 with only the racing medium tires. Tire wear is high enough for tire wear to be an issue, but it is low enough to where you can get away doing all 18 laps and not having to pit. In other words, this is a 0-stop race where tire wear management is key here. To illustrate this, I have 2 runs here, so the 1 stop on the left, the 0 stop on the right. They're both synced up to the same exact race time, so 13 minutes and 52 seconds into the run. The 0 stop is about a second to a second and a half behind the 1 stopper, but the 1 stopper is going to go ahead and pit to get a tire change. So the 1 stopper is doing 2 9-lap stints on the racing medium tires, and this is the main issue with the 1 stop. It's just way too long. You lose 21.5 seconds, and you're definitely not going to make all that time back from the pit loss, because even if you have less fuel when you're starting your 2nd stint, you're still not making up that much time. You're not going that much faster than what you were doing at the start of the race. And yeah, I mean, your times will be a bit better than those on the 0 stop, but you're still something like 15 seconds back. You're still way too far back to really make any sort of progress. So I'm going to go ahead and skip forward towards the end of the race to illustrate once again how slow the one stop is. So the zero stop is already getting ready to cross the start finish line. The one stopper is barely approaching the hairpin. So at the end of the race, the zero stopper, who did all 18 laps on the racing medium tires, is getting a 28 minutes and 28 second run, whereas the one stopper is getting a 28 minutes and 43 second run, so 15 seconds slower. So the zero stop is definitely going to be the way to go for this race. Now with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the cars. So the cars that I tested for this race were the Nissan Silvia S15, which is what you're seeing right now, the Renault Megane Trophy, the Subaru WRX, and the Alfa Romeo 155. Now when it comes to the Nissan Silvia, in terms of this race, I felt like it was a good all-rounder car. So it has a bit of speed, it has some decent handling, but the best thing about this car and what really makes this car shine for this race is that it is so light, it really helps with the tire wear. So this car is pretty gentle when it comes to the tire wear issue, to the point where it's possible to not really have much of a tire wear issue at all throughout your 18 laps here. At least for me, it felt like this car was the most consistent car for me to drive here at Deep Forest. And the tire wear, it doesn't really become too much of an issue. I mean, you do get a little bit of tire wear starting to make itself apparent, and that being mostly just a bit of understeer as the front tires wear out a bit faster. But other than that, the car didn't feel too bad to drive for all 18 laps. And I reckon that for those who are really fast with this combination, it's probably possible to get all of your lap times in the 133s and 134s. So as long as you don't overdrive the heck out of this car and drive carelessly, then you should be fine when it comes to tire wear. But at the end of this run, I was able to get a 28 minutes and 28 second run, with my lap times being mostly consistent. Most of my laps were in the 134s, a couple of 135s here and there. But that's it for the Nissan Silvia. Let's go ahead and talk about the Renault Megane Trophy. So this is one of the other lighter Group 4 cars of the class, and here is the thing about the Renault Megane Trophy. On the what I'm going to call infield section of Deep Forest, that's where this car is really good. This car is a really good handling car, but here is the thing. This car is actually a bit harsh on the rear tires, and if you've driven any of the MR cars with tire wear, when the rear tires start to wear out, the car gets pretty sketchy to drive. And that's exactly going to be the case with the Renault Megane Trophy. As the rear tires wear out, the car becomes a bit sketchier to drive, and the infield section can get a bit scary at times. There's that issue, and the other issue with this car is that it doesn't really pack that much power. It has less power than the Nissan Silvia. I think it has 18 less horsepower, if I remember correctly. And you're really going to feel that on the back and the main straights. So you're not carrying that much speed. So if there's anyone behind you, they can take advantage of you, and you can't really do much about it. And here we go, going through lap 10. So through this section here, as the tires start to wear out, as the rear tires start to wear out, that's where this car can get a bit sketchy to drive, and that's where you need to be a bit more careful about how you're driving the car, because if you start to push the car too much, then it is not going to like that, and the car is just going to start to go all over the place, and you're going to bleed lots of time. But at the end of this run with the Renault Megane Trophy, I was able to get a 28 minutes and 30 second run, so about 2 seconds slower than the Nissan Silvia. And as I mentioned earlier, this car is a good handling car, so the infield section is really good, but the rear tire wear makes it a bit scary to drive in the second half of the race, and it doesn't pack that much power for the main and back straights. So yeah, so with those disadvantages of the Megane Trophy, personally for me, I wouldn't choose this car, but there's probably going to be someone out there that is still going to go with this car. I mean, it's good, but it has its clear disadvantages. But anyways, the next car up is the Subaru WRX Group 4, and this is where it gets weird, because with the Subaru WRX, this is your go-to car for time trial and qualifying. So with this car, it's really easy to get really fast lap times here at Deep Forest, but in the race, it's still going to be good for the first half of the race, but after that, yeah, about that. That's where the front tires are really going to kick in, and this car is going to become miserable to drive. So here's the thing with the Subaru WRX, and in a similar case with the Alfa Romeo 155. So these cars are pretty harsh on the front tires. So once the front tires start to wear out, you're going to start to understeer quite a bit, and it's going to be really difficult to get through the twistier parts of the track. And as I mentioned earlier, this car really harsh on the tires, especially the front tires. So starting on lap 11 in my run, that's where I started to feel that the tires were starting to die of death, and I have to really slow down to make it through these turns and hopefully not understeer off of the track. It becomes pretty painful to drive. If you're not good when it comes to tire wear, then you're probably going to want to avoid using this car in the 155, because once again, once the tire wear starts to kick in for different tires, it's going to become a lot more difficult to turn. You're going to understeer for days, just as you see right now, just understeering a lot as the front tires just has a lot less grip to offer. And yeah, that's the really weird thing about this car. Good on time trial, good in qualifying, good in the first half of the race, and then after that, its pace kind of just starts to fall off a cliff. And yeah, that's again really weird thing about this car. So at the end of this run, I was able to get a 28 minutes and 31 second run, so about 3 seconds slower than the Nissan Silvia. And here's the thing, again, it's going to be fast in the qualifying, it's going to be fast in the first half of the race, but the second half of the race, the front tire wear, it kicks your butt, and you'll be at a pretty big disadvantage. And yeah, I know I repeated a couple of things, but I just really want to point that out, because I know some people are going to see the top times. They're going to see that there's a bunch of WRXs. They're going to say, oh, I'm going to use this car. And then they're going to enter the race. They might get a good qualifying time, and then the tire wears, it just dies on them. So you have been warned in case you're thinking about using that car and the Alfa Romeo 155, because this car has a similar fate with the Subaru WRX, except the front tires just die a little slower. So the thing about the Alfa Romeo 155 is that it is basically a slower but lighter version of the Subaru WRX. It actually has a bit more handling, but it has a bit less speed. So kind of think about it as a fusion of the Subaru WRX and the Megane Trophy, something like that. And just like the WRX, unfortunately, the front tires also wear out pretty fast, although it wears out a little slower than the WRX. So your tires will last a bit longer, but once those tires start to wear out, that's when you're going to start to understeer for days. Your pace is going to fall off a cliff, and it's going to become pretty unpleasant to drive. And in this run, at the end of this run with the 155, I was actually able to go very slightly faster than the Nissan Silvia, getting a 28 minutes and 27 second run. So I think it might be possible for some people to get away with this car, but I still kind of have my reservations about this car, especially with the front tires wearing out. It becomes pretty understeery, and that can be pretty problematic for some people, especially if they're not good when it comes to tire wear management. But at the end of the day, there are a couple of cars that can do pretty well here, but they have their advantages and disadvantages, so you want to carefully think about that before you choose your car for this race. So the Nissan Silvia, it's not the best when it comes to qualifying pace, but in the race it has a really big advantage with its great tire wear management, so you don't have to worry too much about the tire wear as long as you're not overdriving it. The Renault Megane Trophy is good on handling, but the rear tires wear out pretty quickly, so that car gets scary to drive, and it doesn't have that much speed for the main and back straights. The Subaru WRX and the Alfa Romeo 155, those are your go-to cars for qualifying, but in the race, their front tire wears are going to be really bad and their pace is going to fall off a cliff. If you were to ask me which car to choose, I'd probably end up picking the Nissan Silvia, because this car, it's great when it comes to tire wear, and throughout the entire race it just feels pretty good to drive. But that is going to be it from me. I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. So hopefully this guide helps you out a bit, and if you like this video, you can press the like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I do have a membership program which you can check out in the description down below. But that's all from me. This is Mr. CA. Good luck in your race, and I'll see you in the next video.